Alright, welcome back to the Webcomics Iceberg. Corrections and addendums first and foremost, as always, not too many, just two. One, apparently, the reason that the creator of Ranfriend was dubbed problematic was because of a bunch of weirdos that can't handle edgy humor or the shipping community. Like, literally just the shipping community in general. I don't know what their problem is, man. Those guys are weird. And two, this guy said I didn't get all the Chaos Emeralds. I always get all of the Chaos Emeralds. Unless we're playing Advanced 2. To prove this, here's the rest of the footage of that play session of me getting the last Chaos Emerald in Press Garden. See? Okay. Sorry, you can say whatever you want about me, but I will not stand for disrespect to my Sonic skills. Enough preamble, on with the show. Concession. Oh, we actually have a finished webcomic here. Okay, so this is a story by an author using the alias Immelman, who really wants you to know that their persona is a wolf rabbit. Okay. Listen, no shade to furries, I just don't get it. Anyway, we do have a synopsis, a bit wordy but not excessively long. Quote, background. Concession first went online at July 3rd, 2006 on its original host comic Genesis. Around November 8th, 2007, it moved to its own server space where it now resides. It began as a once-weekly comic, soon started with second black and white updates, and now goes twice a week in full color. That sentence has grammatical errors. The comic's initial scope was a gag-a-day format with only the minimal semblance of plot, but it wasn't long until full story arcs took place. Concession is not presented in a graphic novel format, but the arcs are split into title chapters, as can be seen in the archives page. Concession has two spin-offs, At the Heart of It All, which is a personal introspective comic by the author, and Concession Chronicles, a somewhat neglected blog featuring first-person stories written by Concession characters. Previously, there was a translation project to get Concession into as many languages as possible. The project is gone for now, but Imi plans to restart it someday. Amy. Alright. Okay, looks like we got a furry-themed comedy, I think. Guess we'll just have to get into the first impressions segment of this entry. And, first of all, please, have some kind of big fat first button somewhere on your webcomic site, so I don't have to go looking for the fucking Philosopher's Stone to find the first damn comic. There's a web design pro tip for you. And second of all, after reading the first little bit of it, well, the Black Wolf dude here comes off as a major asshole, but hey, strip one. A few strips in, there's a magazine mock-up of the cars from Pixar's Cars, fucking, so I don't know, can I show that on YouTube? I also like how there's inclusion of current events from 2006, when the comic started in the magazine. That really takes me back to a different time. Nostalgic. Anyway, this is a story about a bunch of furries working at a concession stand in a movie theater. It's formatted like a gag-a-day kind of story, but seems likely it will deviate in future strips, considering the cast page having details about characters' psychological traumas and sexualities and religious upbringings. It's not terrible. The Bad Webcomics wiki did pop up when I googled it, but there may be a chance that the quality degrades over time. The art isn't amazing, but it's perfectly serviceable. Jumping ahead to the last few pages, the artwork did significantly improve, so there's that. I also did like the Time Squad strip, as that took me way back. I liked that show when I was young. Now I'm a miserable old man with a receding hairline complaining about bad media on YouTube. It was either that or become a crypto bro. I chose the lesser of two evils. But before we move on to the next comic, let's see if there are any reviews. I figure since we're getting deeper into this iceberg, it might be fun to see what other sites besides Goodreads have to say about these. Mostly because these lesser known and more disturbing webcomics might not have a Goodreads page, and I want to pad out the runtime to get those sweet mid-roll ads. Well, not actually, because I only put one in the video if it's long enough, and two if it's extra long, but if there's more than two max, that's YouTube's new auto mid-roll ad feature that I literally can't disable without physically placing a mid-roll ad myself. It's a weird and kind of shitty feature that fucks up the flow of videos. Much like this wild tangent I'm going on complaining about YouTube's functionality to delay the reviews you want me to read. Speaking of which, here's a review with the positive spin. JHM says, "The perks of being shameless, a counter-argument. Concession is a truly bizarre comic loaded with a potent combination of hard-to-follow plots, awkward writing, often repelling characters, and angst out the wazoo. It is brutal, perverse, and mystifying, and by all rights, I should really hate it. And yet, I find myself liking it a great deal for reasons that are difficult to explain. But why? lie. It's not actually so bad as to have the types of entertainment value ascribed to watching a real train wreck, and as I, and many others, have clearly stated, this is far from classic in any normal sense. So what is it then? The appeal of Concession is that sometimes letting one's sanity and sense of decency take a day off isn't actually a bad thing. For some of us, it's a necessary kind of leave-taking that must take place so that we might keep ourselves sane. And if you look at the history of Concession, this was exactly why it was written in the first place, as a kind of outlet for all of the author's unspoken thoughts, however silly or disturbing, conveyed in a comic form. It pulls no punches and tells no lies. It has no shame and is proud of it. Granted, the lack of repression in the content tends to lead to some very uncomfortable places, regions of the mind that the writing is sometimes wont to hold the weight of. The resulting dramatic oscillations can fairly easily be broken down into three categories: the ridiculously overwrought, the utterly horrific, and the genuinely effective. No category is mutually exclusive, and that is which to whom will vary wildly. Comedy, at times, is nearly as contentious, albeit generally more accomplished and easier to accept at first blush. While perhaps overly sexual or violent or depraved, it fits into the overall sense of unrepressed weirdness, and is often much funnier than it has any right to be. At times, one almost expects pint size from questionable content to leap headlong out of the woodwork and declare himself God. What the fuck is questionable content? In considering some of the disconcerting funhouse mirror similarities between the two strips, who's to say that he'd be wrong? In short, Concession is probably not the comic for you or me, but for those of the necessary constitution, it is worth looking into. Love it or hate it, it is certainly something very unusual. Well, that review kind of sounded a little bit pretentious. Anyway, here's a review with a negative spin. A negative spin. Don't believe what YouTube's auto-generated subtitles tell you, okay? Second review. V-Sync says, darkness induced audience apathy to the comic. Concession as a whole is all over the place. The writing is confused and meandering. For long stretches, the comic can't decide if it wants to be a gagady, a serious drama, or cosmic horror, or what. As a consequence, it suffers from an extreme case of mood whiplash. In some cases, if played for comedy, it actually works, but for the most part, it's just disturbing. The major characters are all incredibly unsympathetic, filling to jerk-ass fetish fuel for the author, or existing to be abused by other characters. It's always one or more of the above for almost every goddamn recurring character. That wouldn't be so bad, but it's impossible to care about what happens to anyone. If the world would be a significantly better place if the entire cast of characters had a heart attack and died, or if you hadn't done any characterization, well, that makes it difficult to have meaningful drama. It might work in dark comedy, but it might work in cosmic horror story, but it requires consistency. Concession doesn't have consistency, and so it fails. The ice nice in the later comics, though, I'll say that. Alright, that's Concession. I don't know. I didn't hate it. Next comic. Witches and Stitches. Oh wow. Looks like we have the first webcomic ever made that we know. This is going to take some serious research when I get around to doing its own dedicated review. So this is a webcomic by a person named Eric Milliken. It was first published in 1985. That's 40 years ago. Wow. 4 decades. Damn. Where does the time go? Apparently, this was a Wizard of Oz fan fiction that Milliken published online. Well, not online per se. I'm guessing it was like bulletin boards or Usenet or something like that. He got it on the net, since we're going way back, might as well use boomer speak, via CompuServe, the first ever internet service provider. Now, this comic appears to be lost. Weirdly enough, not because of its age. Apparently, Milliken was facing legal problems due to copyright laws. The Wizard of Oz, despite being one of the major cultural touchstones of America, is actually not public domain. The movie, that is. The books entered the public domain in 1956, but the movie doesn't enter public domain until 2035, which is actually insane to me. It was 1985 when this comic was posted, so I don't really think the concept of transformative content and fair use were really in the public consciousness. Although I'm calling bullshit on the copyright holders because fair use laws in the United States go all the way back to 1841. That encompasses fan works. This is a rabbit hole I tripped into while going through this iceberg, a much deeper one than the last tier's Cloud Factory. This is definitely a comic I'm going to cover in far greater detail with far more research than the surface level analysis, which, to reiterate, if you're just tuning in, that's what each entry here is, just a surface level overview. But the majority of these will get their own dedicated review video, so subscribe. Do it. Do it now. Which, if you're watching the inevitable supercut, I've already said 6 or 7 times. And if you still haven't, well, like, come on, man, just do it. Hit the button. It's not that hard.
Come on, man.
Should also note that archives of it online are extra hard to find, since there are 2 other webcomics called Witches and Stitches with an N instead of an end. And there's Witches Get Stitches, which actually looks pretty sick, not gonna lie. Might throw it in the bonus tier, because I like the art. Next comic, Diversity Lane. Oh boy, with a title like that, I got a feeling that 4-letter word might come out of my mouth. You know the one. Starts with a W. Wiener. Wait, that's not right. Diversity Lane is a comic by Zach Rosthrone. The full title is Diversity Lane, A Liberal Family Saga. Jesus fucking Christ. Let's infect ourselves with the woke mind virus and turn the friggin' frogs gay. I'm told that both Hillary and Obama smell like sulfur. The Aztecs did in fact smoke the blood of the penis. Sorry, once I start quoting Alex Jones, I just can't stop. Alright, let's check it out. Oh, I was mistaken. This is actually right-wing. Fascinating. So, this isn't necessarily a webcomic per se. This is a WordPress blog by Rosthrone, in which he makes political cartoons as well as blog posts, running from 2008 to 2012. I really thought this was going to be a preachy left-wing comic with that title, but it's a preachy right-wing comic instead. Riveting. And reading a few, well, look, I have problems with political commentary comics in general, which I might cover in a broader scope in a dedicated video in the future. Personally, the art, not bad. Grayscale black and white artwork with cartoonish characters, but there's some style here. Better than something like Stone Toss for sure, in my opinion. The layout style is single panels with one piece of dialogue at the bottom, a la Ziggy. But unlike Ziggy, there isn't really any entertainment value here. The biggest problem with covering a current events-related comic from 2008 and 2025 is that we're so far removed from this that the joke, if there is one, and not a "my side's better than your side, na boo-boo, piece of propaganda, is lost to time. Political cartoons fucking suck. Sorry, not sorry. They always have and always will. They are forever frozen in time, which is a trait applicable to works that make pop culture references. Your stuff is ancient history within a month. It's a waste of talent and effort. Rosthrone can clearly draw, but he chooses it to promote ideology, not for human expression. I don't like that. About any political cartoons for that matter, regardless of leanings. Oh, and I know there's going to be some comments like, red pilled and based, or look, snowflake. Anytime I cover a politically charged work, save it. You're simply wasting your time. Get a fucking life. The contents of the blog is classic Islam bad, Dems bad, good old days, diversity bad, Christianity good, guns good, blah 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 stuff you'd expect from a right-wing creator. No substance whatsoever. But hey, let's take a look at reviews. And I did look at Amazon and Goodreads, and all the reviews are typical red-pilled NPC comics. You know, PC culture bad, red-pilled base, blah blah blah. You guys literally sound the same as the lefties going, diversity is our strength, orange man bad, stay woke. Like, would the both of you just shut the fuck up and go away forever, please? Sick of it, man. Fucking sick of it. Alright, that segment went on for way too long. I didn't like it, if you couldn't tell. Anyway, next comic, and we got a doozy. Warmage. Oh boy. Oh boy, Bad Webcomics Wiki right at the top of a Google search, and it seems that this is the only site, aside from the comic itself, that has any info on it. It's hosted on Comic Genesis, a much older website that you may know as the one that Linkara's Lightbringer was hosted on. It's me, the Lightbringer. Sorry, Linkara comes up, I gotta say the line. I just gotta say the line. It's me, the Lightbringer. Don't talk about me, you son of a bitch. Anyway, I like Linkara. Right? He's a little bit of a cornball, but I like him, you know? Alright, anyway, this ran from 2007 to 2009 and is written and drawn by Eric Dumac Flores. The plot synopsis that I'll pull from the BWW reads as follows. The plot focuses on Llewellyn Renee Connors, aka Warmage, who, through some convoluted business involving his father and an Indian spiritualist, receives a willing concubine, quote-unquote, and the Armor of Rama. The Armor of Rama creates a bulletproof force field around Lou, and the catalyst for many superheroic adventures. The concubine is the catalyst for a lot of sex. Well, this sounds like it's going to be a bad time. Bad for me, but great for you, because you people like to watch me suffer. You fucking sickos. Maybe it won't be as bad as I'm anticipating. Let's give it the old college try. By the way, before we do, what the hell is that figure of speech? College try? What the fuck does that mean? From the ambitiousness of college athletes, earliest known use from 1914, perhaps popularized by a 1917 sermon of the same name by baseball player turned preacher Billy Sunday. The preacher's name is literally Sunday? That's wild. Alright, sports ball guys. Alright, I'm just delaying the inevitable. On with the show. And wow, I need to put some bleach in my eyes, but I don't think that would be good enough. This was bad. Like, really bad. I think this might be worse than Moon Over June, and yes, I'll have part 2 of that review out eventually, okay? So, this guy Lou, right, gets superpowers from performing some kind of Aleister Crowley ritual with a bunch of goth chicks. Now, if you're familiar with my channel, a bunch of goth chicks disrobing tickles the lizard part of my brain in a good way. This, however, is one of the most poorly drawn comics I've looked at on this channel. I think Sonichu had better art. It's all done in MS Paint and there's artifacting all over the place. Character models are excessively inconsistent. The font and word bubbles change every page and the plot is just weird. He bangs these chicks and gets superpowers or something. I got no idea what's going on here. Could have been a good premise for a sex comedy and sounds like one of those manga on my shelf when I sum it up like that, but the execution is atrocious and the story is played dead serious. This was terrible. There's typos and grammatical errors too. I don't know what I just witnessed. This definitely got bumped up the list for an infamous webcomics video. Good lord. Apparently the creator did a video response to his bad webcomics wiki article, but it's since been taken down. Couldn't get it with the Wayback Machine. I did try though. That would have been interesting. He did, however, add a note in his site in response to the BWW entry. Quote, "Hey, I just want to say thank you for the blistering article you wrote about my comic Warmage. Well done. Also, thanks for the links to the old webcomic, but I eventually started over on Drunk Duck." I don't know what that is. Drunk Duck? I think, is that one of the furry webcomic sites? I think that was the one with the cowgirl with the giant titties. What the fuck was that called? All I remember is cowgirl with giant titties. I'll put it on screen. Anyway, back to quoting this. Thanks for the hits to my website, and I'll post links to your article. Have a great day. And he did a follow-up here. I got a scathing review on the old Warmage, which basically hashed out the reasons why I started the project over. It gave me a lot of hits on my site, and I did send a thank you email to the author. Yeah, so apparently there's like a polished version of this, you know? If you're going to compare it to another notorious webcomic, if you ever seen Tales Gets Trolled Polished, which, yes, the Tales Gets Trolled review is going to come out eventually. That one's going to be a fucking film, I swear. Anyway, back to Warmage. He seems proud of himself. Before we get to the reviews, I do want to note that the Comics Genesis version has a C box on the bottom. Yeah, remember those? 46.5% of you probably do. Also, 4.4% of you really should not be watching my content, by the way. Anyway, let's read this chat log from 2007 for old time's sake. Man, I miss the old internet. So Ben says, "I enjoy your comic. I do wish you would update it more often." Dumock replies, "My comics are still updating, but I am working towards pulling stuff out with Pronto Comics, so it's slowing me down a bit." Anon says, "This is the most disgusting thing I've ever read." Anon is very based. "Aw, thank you," says Dumock. Okay. Neko says, "My cousin Neko, hey, been a fan for a long time and enjoying seeing them comics. Just confused before with the rewriting and the loss of the earlier stories. Loved the first version of this, eager to see how it turns out this time." Jinx Tigger says, Jinx Tiger, Tiger, "Your faces of your leading man are getting a lot better." Right, he's moving his webcomic around. Anon says, "Wow, I really love this webcomic. The art is beautiful, the shading especially, and I love the character depth and the stable plot throughout all of this. Never stop, Dumock. You're my hero." Thanks for the compliment. Yeah, I think that last guy was being sarcastic. Anyway, that was a blast from the past. Let's check out reviews. Can't really find any. Damn. This is currently the second worst webcomic on this iceberg. You guys already know the first worst. We haven't covered it in the series yet, but I already covered it in its own video, so, by the way, why is that my most popular video? That doesn't sit well with me, man. Anyway, this was an abomination. Next comic. Pastel Defender Heliotrope. Okay, so I typed this in, and one of the first results was a video by Ben Saint explaining the author's multiverse. If you don't know who that is, he makes these absurdly long videos explaining the lore of any particular thing he finds interesting, like excessively long, like Quentin reviews long. Wait a minute. Hang on a second. 47 hours? 47 hours! 47 fucking hours!
A few moments later.
Sorry, got a little carried away there, but 47 fucking hours!
More moments later.
Alright. If you want to watch a video that will literally require you to commit sleep deprivation to watch all the way through, hey, there's one. Back to the comic. Well, looks like I stepped on a landmine. A landmine full of content. Smack that sub button, alright, and stay tuned. As for the actual webcomic on this entry, this is a story by Jennifer Diane Reitz. It ran from 2004 to 2008 and is one of the few finished webcomics on this iceberg. So this is actually based on a game that the creator made way back. Reitz is actually in her 60s and has a very long creative history going all the way back to making games on the Amiga. Yeah, that's a long time. You may also know about the Kokoro Wish comic. That's her. What's your Kokoro wish? This one's a doozy, as is the rest of Reitz's work. Very hard sci-fi. The art is very unique, sometimes amazing, sometimes pretty rough. I really like the environmental designs. As for the plot, it's thick with walls of text and exposition dumping to a point where I can't really follow it, but there's more to the JDR verse. So I actually decided to check out that Ben Saint video, one of his shorter ones, only clocking in at around 2 hours. I do recommend it. And it turns out Jennifer Diane Reitz is actually quite an interesting outsider artist, is what I would define her as. Rather than looking at this one in full detail, I'm going to save it for a sub-series of webcomic reviews looking at her entire multiverse, going all the way back to Multiverse, the game she and her husband couldn't finish for the Amiga. If only her Kokoro wish was fulfilled. I will say once again though, the art is pretty damn good at times and pretty damn bad at times. It's weird. The art looks more inconsistent than Archie Sonic. So put a bookmark in this and we will revisit the JDR verse in the near future. For now, let's move on to the next comic. Soul of Neko. Okay, this is a webtoon by Amsai Samuel, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and, well, it's not been translated to English. It's written in Indonesian. Copy-pasting the synopsis into Google Translate, let's see what it's about. Quote, Otto, a flat-faced young man who lives his boring daily life like a zombie with no appetite. One day he finds a dying cat in the middle of the road and something interesting starts to happen. Good work, Google Translate. You're making progress. But, flat face? What the fuck does that mean? Anyway, I can't do that for the rest of the comic because the dialogue is part of the image and it doesn't appear to have an English translation anywhere. Actually, I did find one, but it's low res. From a surface level, it seems to be a bit of a Gooner comic, but with a supernatural twist of some kind. Looks like it might be a fun read, honestly, and, hey, like all good Gooner comics, the art's pretty damn good, and holy shit, is that quite? So it's only the first little bit of the first chapter that's been translated, at least the one that I could find. I'm not quite sure how to sum up what I read. The main character, Otto, is docile and lives a shitty life, but one day everything changes. Probably. We didn't get that far. I get the feeling this is going to be one of those wish fulfillment power fantasy stories, but with a Gooner twist, if the author's Twitter is anything to go by. Strangely, his description is in English, but everything else is in Indonesian. Nice artwork, though. Really like this one. Shame I can't give it a proper read, because like I said a second ago, I do quite like the artwork. Alright, until it gets officially translated, or unofficially translated in some capacity, we're just going to have to move on for now. But I do wonder why Spider the Yandere put it on this iceberg and shared it with an English-speaking audience, you know, on the English-speaking side of the internet, where everything's in English. I know, weird choice, but hey, we're just going to move on for now. The Acronym of Tomorrow. What are these titles? And looking further into it, this should be disqualified from the iceberg. I already stated prior that I will do a video looking at Homestuck and its various spin-offs, but this looks like a different one in that genre. That sort of interactive choose-your-own-adventure style of comic. I'm probably going to pass this one up for a dedicated video, so here's the cliff notes. It was created and posted by Epic Bladder 3... Epic Badler, excuse me. Epic Bladder could hold all the world's piss. Epic Badler 3 on May 10th, 2021. It features anthropomorphized objects and the story is a game show. The presentation is similar to something like Homestuck with images featuring captions and options to click. I looked at it a little bit and honestly, dude, I just can't be bothered. I'm sorry. It doesn't help that it's a series of images with basically chat logs interspersed in between. Like, my dude could have absolutely used word balloons. Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Oh crap, I already used that one. Oh well, y'all got a 2 for this time. I don't know, they're talking objects on a game show, hijinks ensues. I'm just so disinterested in this. Reviews? Can't find any. Sorry, this doesn't technically qualify as a webcomic in my opinion, and I really find it kind of lame to be honest. Sorry, not sorry. Next. Sexy Losers. Well, as the title implies, this is indeed a spicy comic. This is made by an artist called Clay. Just Clay. And hey, There's a handy about section on the website. Quote, about the comic. This is a comic I started in 1999 with some friends. Along the way, I had some adventures and met many people, some whose work appears in this comic. The comic was fairly regular from 1999 to 2003, but after 2004 was only updated sporadically. This is a work of humor and should not be taken seriously at all. About the artist. No, I'm not really into the crazy things some of the more extreme characters are. Yeah, okay. I've heard that one before. Okay, so I guess it has some guest artists, but that doesn't explain the plot. Guess we just gotta read the damn thing. And, well, the first strip actually did make me giggle a little. You know, not bad. And overall, honestly, for a Gooner comic, this one's pretty decent. You know, the art is kind of like manga meets Sunday news strip if I'm going to describe it somehow. The jokes are alright. Some of them made me blow some air out of my nose, but I'm still yet to achieve a full-on guffaw. Perhaps a bellow, maybe even a chortle. Nay, left with the lowly snicker here or there. But hey, writing comedy is exceptionally hard. It really is. Only patrons know this, but I do a weekly bonus comic strip for him called Doomsayer Extra. It's a quick gag strip with a joke involving the cast of my comic Doomsayer, and man, I honestly think comedy is by far the hardest genre to write. Anyway, getting back to Sexy Losers, I did jump ahead and the art seems pretty consistent throughout with color added in more recent installments. Is it quote-unquote sexy? I kind of like the designs in something like Soul and Neko better. What can I say? I like them thick, alright? Clay seems to be more into petite, you know, to each their own. Reviews? Well, I actually found a few ancient websites talking about it. This comic did start in 1999 after all. I did find a pretty in-depth one from 2004 though. 21 years ago. Fuck, I'm old. I'll actually pan it on screen if you find ancient websites and old reviews as fascinating as I do. I don't know, it's weird. Something about them, man. They just appeal to me. To sum it up, though, firstly, the author used to go by the name Hard, which is honestly fitting considering the nature of the comic. Don't know why he changed it. I guess he switched to Clay at some point. Who knows when. So, there's two main points the reviewer sticks on in this review. Claims that it gets repetitive over time, which I'm sure is somewhat inevitable in adult comics, but I guess that's if you're bad at them, because I could read the entirety of something like World's End Harm locked in on the edge of my seat anticipating the next page. The second critique in this review that keeps appearing is that it's so lowbrow. There's no sophistication. Yeah, no shit, it's fucking porn. Not a single soul on this planet goes into reading this kind of genre expecting fucking Shakespeare, you doofus. Now, granted, some adult stories, if created with time and care, can elevate your suspension of disbelief, and you may actually find a good and engaging story underneath. I didn't quite get that from Sexy Losers, and I guess the reviewer was completely offended about the fact that he didn't either. I also absolutely love how this review needed to clarify the definition of bukkake. I love that detail. I mean, nowadays I'm pretty sure most adults in the world knows what that is, and if you don't, you are so not my target demographic, or you should really click off this video and go back to playing Roblox. Alright, it was alright, not bad. Next comic. I.W.A.T.S.V. Again, these titles, man, what the hell? Hopping on over to Comic Fury, I.W.A.T.S.V, or I.W.A.T.S.V, which I'm going to call it, is actually made by a team composed of Zalenrath, Reincarnivorous, Space Crispies, and Proteus. Aside from Zalenrath being attributed as the artist, the other roles are undefined on the webcomic profile page. Synopsis? Why yes, we have one. Quote, Team Hades are the newest metahuman actioneers from out Chicago way. Teenage superheroes who are going to be the biggest news to break the internet since the last biggest news to break the internet. Join their adventure. PG-13 rating for violence. Superhero comic. Duh. Bad language. People are fucking profane sometimes. Nudity. Oh no, it's the human body. You've been warned. This is gonna suck, isn't it? Alright, superheroes. Okay. Alright, I'm just gonna say it. I don't like superhero comics. I just don't. I don't like that cape shit at all. So unfortunately, I'm already going into this with a bias. It's cool if you like superheroes, but I am so over them, dude. Also, I hate the phrase break the internet so goddamn much. Like, it's boomer shorthand for something going viral, but the implications are that whatever piece of news it is actually makes the internet stop working, which it doesn't. It doesn't break the internet. Stop fucking saying that. If you want to break the internet, you physically have to destroy the lines in the ocean, not make some kind of viral sensation. I hate it here. Okay, facetious ramblings about abhorrent linguistics aside, let's give it a shot. And, well, the art's pretty solid. There's definitely some heart put into it. Kind of feels like one of those early Image comics. Characters are legible, and it starts off with a fight scene, really showing off the artist's ability to choreograph a scene. The writing, however, look, swearing is fine, okay? I say fucking shit all the time, even right here on this very channel. But when it's used in excess to tell a story with the intent of being, look how cool and badass these characters are, it just comes off as a try-hard edgelord. The recent Devil May Cry animated series, fuck you, it's not an anime, came under fire for the same thing with its bastardized version of my favorite character, Lady. And look, I don't really do movie or TV reviews, but I feel like I got it for this one, so stay tuned for that. But that unfortunately means actually watching it in full instead of clips that people pull from it to point out how cringe it is, but we'll get to that when we get to that. Like, listen, you can have characters that swear a lot. It can be a part of their characterization even. I think a perfect example of this is Deb from the Dexter TV series. Now, quality of the later seasons of that show aside, one thing I think it did well throughout the entire show was consistent characterization. Deb is a very abrasive and blunt person, and the excess swearing adds to that, like this clip right here.
Rita's pregnant.
You're lying.
I'm not lying.
A baby? A motherfucking roly-poly, chubby cheek shit machine? Are you kidding me?
Well, I've never heard it described in quite those words before, but yeah.
See, it's not put in there to be so edgy and cool and badass. Like, we can show how strong this character is by how much they swear. No, it's part of the character's personality. Hell, in my own comic, I have this character, Alyssa, and she talks like that because it's a personality type, just really blunt and in your face. I was not getting that from the entire cast of I.W.A.T.S.V talking like 4th graders who just found out what the F word is. But again, to be a bit more charitable, art was pretty good, story didn't hook me, superheroes fighting supervillains, I'm bored already, but to reiterate, I have a bias against superhero stuff. Reviews? Couldn't find any. This one seems a bit obscure, I'm not sure why Spider the Yandere put it on here, maybe they liked it. Hey, it's cool if you do, but we're moving on. Tales from the Void. Finally, a normal sounding title. I'm thinking we're in for some horror. Okay, so this looks like it's actually a spin-off. But there's a chance it might work as a standalone. Let's check it out. So this is a webcomic by We.Flaps Comics, started in 2024. So we got a pretty new one here. The synopsis is as follows. Quote, welcome to the home of all the shorter comics stemming from Coral of the Void. Catch up with all the random day-to-day fun Cody and Coral have when they're not dealing with the main canon storyline. And consider jumping on our Patreon. It helps fuel both Tales from the Void and Coral of the Void. Thanks for reading. Well, that wasn't a very good synopsis. All I got is that this is a spin-off of a comic called Coral of the Void, and the main characters are Cody and Coral. Maybe a gag strip, slice of life, not sure. Damn, some of y'all need to go to synopsis writing school. You need to give the reader an idea of what they're in for. Not, this is my spin-off, and it has Cody, and it has Coral, and it's not canon to the main series because spin-off. Me being pretentious aside, let's read it. Oh, but before I do, I should note that there's a Canadian horror anthology show with the same name if you look this one up. So, yeah. Reviews on that look pretty bad, but hey, I might check it out. I don't know. Then again, my maple syrup tolerance is pretty low. Us Americans like freedom too much to eat poutine. Alright, boom. We got the John Makes Fun of Canada quota fulfilled. A boot, buddy. Alright, I digress. As for Tales from the Void, I didn't really like it. Apparently this predates Coral of the Void and was recently reformatted for Webtoon. So the premise is this cat named Coral talks and does cat stuff, and her human, as she millennial writingly refers to as human, who I assume is Cody, gets involved and hijinks ensues. It's a typical gag strip. None of them are excessively long. The art's pretty decent, very cartoony, but well executed. Was it funny? Well, once again, humor is very subjective. You know, there exist people out there who find Brendan Schwab humorous. They're real. Then again, I'm a weirdo who thinks Bong Hit Transplant is the funniest joke in the entire history of comedy.
I look at him and go, yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
What did she have? A bong hit transplant?
What did she have? A bong hit transplant?
Perfect.
I found this comic very Reddit millennial cringe. The jokes, while having setup and punchlines like a typical gag strip, had me stone-faced the entire time. Maybe if you're a cat owner, you can get a chuckle out of it. As for me, nah, not doing it. Reviews? Well, the aforementioned Celine Dion-ass spooky show of the same name makes looking them up kind of hard. Look, I like to poke a bit of fun at our neighbors to the north, but I don't really mean nothing by it. I do, however, still want an apology for Celine Dion. Oh, and Bryan Adams, too. Come on, Canada. Time to say you're sorry. Anyway, back on track to the comic. The comments section on the Webtoon page seems supportive, and it looks like it has generally positive feedback. Again, it's a comedy, so it all really depends on your sense of humor. Some people, like Amy Schumer, who, I don't know, but her success had to come from somewhere. Not just her distantly related family member, Senator and eternal member of the United States government, Chuck Schumer, right? Like, some people had to find her funny. And personally, I find someone like Anthony Jeselnik hilarious, which I could totally understand why some people wouldn't. The only comedian I know that gets more gasps than laughs. Comedy is hard. By far the hardest to write, as I said a few entries ago. Check it out and draw your own conclusions. As to not drag the segment out any further, we're gonna move on. Underroof. Alright, this one was kind of hard to pinpoint. There are multiple comics with the words under and roof in them. There's Under One Roof on Comic Fury, Under Roof on Tapas, and Under the Same Roof on Webtoon. Now I think Spider the Yandere may have just made a typo and that they were referring to Under One Roof on Comic Fury because there's a note on the comics on that site for some reason. Kind of a weird detail, but useful for this entry. So, we're going to look at Under One Roof over on Comic Fury for this entry. So, what is Under One Roof? It was created by artist Fangzeri, and the synopsis is as follows. Quote, heavily and graciously inspired by the object show like Jack and Jellify's Battle for Dream Island and Animation's Inanimate Insanity. An object show of a different sort. The story takes place right after the competition, where we join our 20 contestants in Mechanical Pencil's newly won mansion. All the previous contestants that he decided to let join him for the spoils of victory are here too, and feeling a bit annoyed by their new living arrangements. The place is packed to the gills with interesting sights, hidden secrets, and yet something just doesn't feel right. The walls have ears and the game is still heated. And of course, Quarter is still up to his usual dastardly deeds, trying to make a profit wherever possible. However, this time he's not alone in the scheming. Oh, okay, so it's like that non-webcomic one from a few entries back about the anthropomorphized objects. Alright, I can tell I'm not going to like it, but we'll give it a shot anyway. And it's not terrible. Kind of bored 15 or so pages in. So Mechanical Pencil, yes, that's the name of the protagonist, has won some game show and got a mansion from it, which is highly implausible, because if you win a game show, the IRS is going to peg you into submission, no lube, no consent. They will nickel and dime you to the fucking grave. All those game shows and that Mr. Beast-ass shit never show you how demonic the IRS is and how they descend like carrion vultures to rip apart their prey. Yeah, I'm getting sidetracked, and I should probably tiptoe around my opinion of how taxes work in the U.S. of A., so, back to the main script. Anyway, MP, Mechanical Pencil MP, is a douche, and all the other objects hate him. Apparently he cheated in the show, and they decide to have another competition. It's, just not hooking me. The art is nice, though. Kind of gives me a Nick Jr. kids show feel, which is fine, considering how the story feels very PG. I should note that around 20 pages in, there's actually animation, which is really cool. I like that. Kind of cool when authors take advantage of the medium and do things they can only do in it. I'm just kind of extremely indifferent to this one, you know?
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
Reviews? Well, for this Under One Roof, no. But I did find another comic, a manhwa with the same name, that is an adult comic. Curiously, simply for the sake of research and no other reasons, I took a look at it. Not very plot-heavy, just well-drawn gooner fuel. I will say, however, for some reason, I do not understand the censorship of the male genitalia, probably due to some weird South Korean obscenity laws. Makes it look like he's got a lightsaber in his pants. Lady, I ain't no Star Wars fan, but I'm pretty sure putting an energy beam in your mouth isn't a good idea. Anyway, gooner comic of the same name aside, Under One Roof is highly inoffensive and leaves me feeling utterly indifferent. Next, Comedy of the Carrion Angels. Staying put on Comic Fury, we got an interesting sounding one. Title's giving me horror vibes. This is by an artist using the moniker Shikets. So, what's it about? Well, luckily, we got a handy-dandy synopsis. Quote, Tensions are high in Paris following the attacks of 2015, with the recent rise of anti-Semitism as an after effect. Lionel, an immortal satyr-like Jewish warlock, quits his long-standing law career after several emotional breakdowns. Paranoid and mostly isolated, he questions his identity and place in the rapidly changing modern world, quick to adapt and entertain conspiracy theories. His younger brother, Henry Claude, a weeaboo and disgraced gendarme, which I looked that up. That's like just a French cop. Just say cop? You already said it was in France. Dismisses and mocks these theories as frustrated sexual repression. Their eccentric and cruel father, a scheming funeral baron, Jacques, finds it entertaining. With his own past a shrouded and closely kept enigma, he's hell-bent on grandchildren regardless of the ensuing consequences. But something is wrong with Lionel, and nothing can prepare him for the chaos that ensues. Adults only. Vulgar language, sexual content, nudity, and violence. Also contains physical abuse, sexual assault / R-word I can't say on YouTube, political extremism, religious extremism, self-harm, S-word I can't say on YouTube, acts, substance abuse, full frontal nudity, body horror, sexual horror. Oh boy. Oh boy. Alright, considering the recent tensions and political climate around the Israel-Palestine conflict, I'm sure this one will be quite the read and not controversial for the channel whatsoever. I really don't want to touch this one, but I must, or else viewers will be upset like, hey, why'd you just gloss over that one? So let's set aside any biases one way or another and give it a try. But before I do, I should note this message the author left on this Jewish-centric comic in regards to the Middle Eastern conflict. Their words, not mine. I have no stake in any political ideologies. I just cover comics and art weirdos, okay? My content's strictly entertainment and documentarian purposes, I guess you could say. That's it. But just so I'm not taking out of context in any propaganda or hit pieces one way or another, if the channel grows and there's a bigger set of eyes on me, I will pan it on screen instead of reading it, okay? So draw your own conclusions, have your own stances. I have no skin in the game, okay? Okay, so let's take a look at this comic, and, well, it put me to sleep. The art is done in this kind of grayscale with spot color style that I actually quite like, but the character designs don't really appeal to me at all. Feels kind of Tumblr-y. The first few pages when dialogue starts are very wordy to the point where I just stop paying attention. I can't really speak on the story at this point. It really did just kind of put me to sleep. It hooked me even less than Under One Roof. I'm not sure when all the Jewish stuff is introduced, nor do I really care to read further into it. It's really dull, honestly. But hey, let's see some reviews. And I can't really find any. I found a dead web page with one, but, the page was dead. Hence, dead web page. A few comments on Comic Fury seem mostly positive. It was just too damn wordy for me, and I didn't really like the character designs either. We're just going to move on, and honestly, I don't want to touch that one again, considering the state of things. Next, Theater of the Bloody Tongue. Alright, this one is by a team of Stilldown and Ariane Eldar. What's it about? Let's consult the synopsis. Quote, a tongue-in-cheek... Freudian slip. Okay. A tongue-in-cheek mixture of NSFW Grand Guignol stories and SFW crossover / parodies of other webcomics. Ariane Elder, beloved Doom Witch known from Bad Moon Soho, Steampunk Gorgon, and Ariane Elder Private, is the new underground star of the Theater of the Bloody Tongue, recreating the classic Grand Guignol. During the theater's tour through underground theaters, the Faceless God appears and forces Ariane to do some tasks involving interdimensional travel. Okay, wow. That was a mouthful. Okay, well, not quite sure what the story is about, but there are two things I want to note about the synopsis. Maybe I'm alone in this, but I think the majority of people watching don't know what the hell Grand Guignol means. So I googled it. And it was basically a theater in France specializing in horror that was open from 1897 to 1962. Damn, we're still in France. Hopefully you can get back stateside in the next entry. But yeah, that's kind of interesting. I might actually look further into that for my own research just to see what that was all about. There's also a YouTube trailer for this comic uploaded in 2016 that has what I think is Sun playing. You know, that shitty band with the two guys in cloaks that spend hours filling up the venue with fog so they can stand still and play 2 notes an hour, and pretentious music snobs like Anthony Fantano think it's some of the most groundbreaking art ever made, even though it's absolute fucking dog shit. Yeah, I don't like Fantano. Or Sun. Anyway, back to the comic. And this isn't so much a comic as an illustrated novel, or a light novel, I guess, if you want to be weeby about it. Once again, I'm being put to sleep, and it's got naked goth chicks. How the hell could that put me to sleep? It starts with some history of the Grand Guignol and how this theater of the bloody tongue is going to revive it, but it's so text-heavy that I can't possibly dedicate the time to reading this, even the first little bit of it, and give you the first impression, cover all the other comics in this tier, and get the video out in a somewhat timely fashion. Didn't appeal to me, which is weird, honestly, because it does have goth chicks. That usually gives it bonus points. I don't know, I might revisit it. Should note that the author and the main character share the same name. Not sure if it's like an alias and she wants the story to be an immersive first-person account, or if it's some kind of wish fulfillment self-insert fantasy kind of thing. I don't know. Honestly, I didn't really do that much research on this one after being assaulted by walls of text upon first viewing. Like I said, I'll probably revisit this one at some point in the future and her other works because it appears she has a lot. Couldn't find any reviews of this comic in particular though, or light novel in particular, so we're just going to move on. Dancing with the Dead. Unfortunately, this comic has the same problem as Underroof, but at a much larger scale. I'm not quite sure which comic this is in reference to, and I can't really pinpoint it. The Iceberg says that it's on Comic Fury, but when I type it in, it does not appear. Maybe it was taken down at some point. There's a lot of other comics with the combinations of the word dancing and dead, so that makes it hard to search for. If Spider the Yandere is watching this, first of all, thank you for making this iceberg chart. We appreciate you here at the John channel. Secondly, which one are you talking about, dude? Please leave a comment. Please. And don't worry, the community sees you as the real MVP, and everyone will be like, yo, it's the legend, or something like that. So yeah, like, thanks for the chart, but what comic am I looking for here, you know? Until that's sorted, we're going to just move on. If I find out which one the chart refers to, I'll throw it at the start of the next tier or in the bonus tier. Or tiers. We'll talk about that later. Next comic. Shadestalker. Still on Comic Fury. We got one from an author going by Courtney. Do we have a synopsis? Why, yes we do. Quote, a transgender woman by the name of Grenda Schneider finds herself and her town under attack by extra-dimensional demons with extraordinary powers. She must use a combination of martial arts, witchcraft, and a mysterious amulet given to her by her great-grandmother to beat back these invaders. However, the government also seems to be interested in Grenda and her amulet, and seems to be involved in a shadowy, covert war with the demons as well, as Grenda finds herself in the middle. Fascinating. Alright, let's get those first impressions going. So, we got this transgendered musician who's not drawing crowds because bigotry or something. Then some punk tries to kill her for an amulet. She comes out on top in the fight, and the punk disappears into a different dimension. Then the cops detain her for questioning. Then the punk transforms into a demon. The story's going a mile a minute, but I can't deny that it's intriguing. The art is, well, I mean, maybe take a look at the screen instead of whatever you're using me for background noise for and draw your own opinions. I mean, it does get better jumping ahead to the latest pages, but rough is probably the most fitting word. There's something about it, though, that I can't place my finger on. It's kind of giving me, like, Tails Gets Trolled vibes, you know? It's crudely drawn, the layout's rough, and the story feels kind of all over the place, but I kind of want to keep reading. I don't know. Reviews? Can't find any. Doesn't help that there's an item in the game Destiny of the same name. Also, side note that's completely unrelated, but I have never heard anyone say anything good about Destiny. Everyone talks about it like it was an addictive substance that ruined their life that wasn't even fun to play. What's up with that? Anyway, Shadestalker. Definitely an interesting one. Next comic, and the last one on this tier. The Adventures of Sir Power, and unfortunately it looks like we're ending this one on a bit of a low note, as we seem to be having the same problem with this one as Dancing with the Dead. It appears to have been taken down, and I guess that's a wrap. Sorry to disappoint you, but hey, if anyone knows where I can find this one or Dancing with the Dead, they will be put at the start of the next tier in this iceberg. If you find it, share it on the channel's Discord, linked in the description, 100% free, none of this membership nonsense, just a chill server of chill artists and creators doing chill things. Anyway, it's about that outro time. Alright, and that's tier 6 of the Webcomics Iceberg. If there were any mistakes, as I'm sure there are, I don't always get everything right, please leave a comment, tell me what information was incorrect, and I'll correct it at the start of the next tier, as always. We have one more main video to go, as I'll be combining tier 7 and 8 into one segment due to 8's short length, but then there's the bonus tier. I stopped asking for suggestions for that after Tier 1 due to the overwhelming volume of submissions. There might actually be 2 bonus tiers at this point. We're coming to the end of this poorly drawn and horrifically laid out journey with all the lolcows and political activists we made along the way. Granted, that means I should start thinking about the next iceberg. I do want to keep it art related since this is, in fact, a primarily art/comics channel. I'm thinking I should see if there's a performance art iceberg. I always found that offshoot of creativity fascinating. Or perhaps something else like a general print comics iceberg or an art history iceberg, something more vague like that. Maybe lost art iceberg, I don't know. You, Mr., Mrs., or Mixer, viewer for that matter, whoever you may be, would you be so kind as to leave a suggestion for a future iceberg? I'd appreciate that. Just like I appreciate you watching this video all the way to the end. Quite the ride. As always, thank you for watching this video.